Picture this, you walk into the office on a Monday morning with your Stanley mug in hand, and before you even sit down, you hear hush hush rumors about company restructuring. Downsizing could actually be around the corner, or there's a major reshuffle in top management and your department may be affected. The coffee starts tasting sour. You start thinking of your children's future, your children's education, the incomplete mortgages, your aging parents' medication, and suddenly the ground feels shaky under your feet. Is your productivity going to betray you? Will someone remember the work that you have put in already up until now? Could you be on the chopping block if the rumors that you are hearing are actually confirmed? Change at work is not the exception anymore. It's actually the rule. And in this video, I'm going to share with you 7 ways that you can stay emotionally balanced when everything at work is shifting. And I'm going to use very practical tools that you can use from today. Hi. Welcome back to my channel, and if we are crossing paths for the very first time, my name is Nancy. I'm a former airline professional turned workplace leadership trainer. I've also authored leadership books, my most recent work being Lead Outwardly Loud. So you'll mostly find me on this platform discussing topics on matters of leadership, professional growth, career advancement as you endeavor to protect your mental and emotional well-being. So if you're looking forward to a promotion or you're already in a leadership position, my content will resonate with you. Kindly consider subscribing. Press that notification bell on your screen and you'll receive regular updates whenever I release a new video. Thank you so much for being part of this workplace leadership community. Workplace change is not rare. It's actually inevitable in this day and age. And you're going to experience it in the form of layoffs, that create fear and uncertainty, or a sudden promotion that just feels both exciting and overwhelming. That was actually my case. Or a new leadership team that actually comes with a completely different vision. And there's also the rise of AI, which is changing how you and I do our daily work. What matters is how you respond to it. So instead of fighting the waves, let's just dive into the 7 ways that are going to secure your mental strength even when work feels upside down. Starting with number 7, you want to control the controllables, and this is specifically for you if you always feel the pressure to fix everything. One of the fastest ways to lose your balance during workplace change is to try to manage things that you cannot necessarily control. You want to control the outcomes, you want to control your team's emotions, you even want to control the decisions that are coming from higher up in the hierarchy. But the more energy you spend on what's outside of your control, the less power you're going to have over the things that you can actually influence. And sometimes leadership is not about moving mountains that you cannot touch. It's actually in redirecting your focus to the areas where your choices and your actions do matter. So before you start obsessing over the things that you cannot control, try shifting your focus from outcomes to actions. You cannot always control the results of a restructuring, for example, or whether a company decides to change strategy again next month, but you can control your actions today just by how you show up in meetings, how you communicate with your team members, how you organize your own priorities. That way, you're no longer chasing outcomes. You're actually focusing on intentional actions. And you also want to reframe uncertainty into growth opportunities. You don't have any power over what you don't know. And I'm thinking, the new policies being dropped overnight, the shifting roles, the sudden technology changes like AI reshaping your work, as we've just mentioned. But you can control how you look at and feel about these moments. So instead of seeing them as threats, start looking at them as opportunities to stretch your leadership muscles. How fast can you adapt? How much can you add to your communication, to your communications? How deep can you dig into emotional intelligence? Every shift becomes a chance to build muscle you didn't even know you had. This does not just work to your benefit. Your teams will also start seeing you as that steady point in the storm. So the next time you feel the overwhelm rising, the next time you feel like you're losing control, just pause and ask yourself, what one thing can I control right now? It could be your tone in meetings. It could simply be how you look out for yourself that day. At number 6, you want to name what's changing, not just what you're feeling. When work shifts, the very first thing that we usually notice is the feeling. You can call it stress or anxiety or maybe even anger. But what would happen if instead of stopping at I'm really stressed, you actually dug deeper? Like maybe it's not everything that's overwhelming me, maybe it's the new reporting structure where I'm not very clear on who to answer to when I get to work, how many check-ins I might have to go through before starting on my agenda of the day, or the deadlines that keep changing and you can no longer keep up, you can no longer plan your schedules around them, or maybe even that one conversation that you've been avoiding for the longest time and it's the only doorway to your next promotion. And here you're naming what's really shifting, you're addressing the real trigger, which gives you something that you can start addressing piece by piece. Clarity cuts anxiety in half. Why? Because anxiety feeds on ambiguity. When the details are fuzzy, your brain starts filling the gaps with worst case scenarios, worst case stories. This is what raises your stress levels. It's going to make everything feel bigger than it actually is. But clarity is going to reduce the unknowns, which means fewer scary stories and wiser choices. So once you know what's real and what's not, you can actually decide on your next move. So to create clarity and fast, you want to go for facts only. What do I know for sure? Then you want to identify the gaps in the information that you have at hand, like what don't I know and what are my top 3 questions, and then quickly figure out what the next step should be, like what one action can I take in the next hour. For example, you get an email that your team structure, is changing. The facts are reorganization has been announced, and this is likely to come with new reporting lines. You're probably going to get more details by Friday as per the email. Then the top 3 gaps, like who do you report to? What are the new priorities? Are there any role changes for your team members? And then the next step, which as we've just seen, should be within the hour. Draft 3 clarifying questions to your manager and then schedule a 15-minute team meetup just to share what is known and what is unknown. And then set expectations for updates by Friday, also just as per the email. And you're going to notice that the story of everything is falling apart now becomes here's what's true, here's what I'm asking, and here's what I'm doing. That shift alone is going to cut the anxiety in half. And you'd be surprised at how often people in leadership get swept in emotions when clarity is lacking. At number 5, you want to create micro routines for stability. Change has a way of shaking up the big routines. That moment when you're confronted with new schedules, new bosses, new workflows, micro routines are so powerful. They anchor you when everything else feels unpredictable. Just small routines are going to remind your brain that you still have control, you still have stability, and you can set the tone for your days. The brain loves patterns, and in chaos, a tiny predictable sequence, like just 5 minutes of journaling before you open that laptop, or just writing down your 3 priorities, your top 3 priorities for the day on a sticky note, is going to lower your mental noise and reassure the brain that all is well. And the win is not in the size of the ritual, but the repeatable cue that tells your nervous system that we know what to do next. So a few micro rituals that you can start on today. The 3-minute morning anchor, where you move, mind, map. To move, go for 60 seconds of stretching while your coffee is brewing. For your mind, go for 5 slow breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And then for map, write your top 3 priorities for the day on a sticky note. And here you're saying, I choose the day doesn't choose me. And you could also carry out the 90-second midday reset where you name, you aim, and you do. So you name the one thing that's draining you in real time. Then you aim for what matters most within that hour, and without procrastinating, you start the first 5 minutes of that task. No perfection, just motion, And the plan here is to break the overwhelm and give yourself that sense of stability. Another micro ritual that you can carry out, and most people that I know swear by this one, is the 5-minute shutdown, where you capture, you plan, and you close. So for capture, you just dump all the loose thoughts and the to-dos in one list. And then for planning purposes, you circle your top 3 for tomorrow, and then close the tabs, say out loud, work is closed, I'm off duty. And what you're doing here is you're creating a clean handoff so that you can rest without guilt. Make these rituals tiny and tied to a trigger. For example, when I open my laptop, I do move, mind, and map. When I feel like my mind is all over the place, I do name, aim, and do. And when I log off, I do capture, plan, and close. And you're going to notice that tiny and consistent beats big and inconsistent every time. So just tell yourself that when everything shifts, routine feels ripped away. But when you move, mind, and map, or when you name, aim, and do, or when you capture, plan, and close, stability is restored. At number 4, you want to protect your recharge spaces. When uncertainty looms within the work environment, the temptation for most people is to sacrifice the very things that make us productive. This is what I call the recharge spaces. It could be cooking, it could be knitting, meditating, exercise, or just sitting in silence. These are not just luxuries, these are survival strategies. Just look around at your leaders who you consider, balanced. They don't just react better, they actually inspire balance within their teams. And I'm a firm believer that you can walk into a room as a thermostat or as a thermometer. A thermostat is going to radiate energy from the inside out and influence the energies around you. A thermometer, on the other hand, is going to internalize the room energies from the outside in and be influenced by the energies around. So as a leader, you want to be a thermostat, not a thermometer. That means that if you're frantic, everyone is going to warm to frantic. If you show up as calm, cool, collected, your team is going to regulate to that. So the one thing that you can weave into your days just to recharge your energy and actively protect your recharge spaces is to design recovery into your work. Weave it into your work. For example, after a big presentation, schedule a cool down. Just go for lighter tasks. No new initiatives for the next 24 to 48 hours. While serving as cabin crew, I remember we always held team debriefs after each and every flight just to discuss what drained us during the flight, what worked, were there areas of improvement that we could carry moving forward. And somehow this felt therapeutic walking into subsequent flights. That way you feel like recovery is not an afterthought, it's actually part of the process. So start by taming your meetings. You want to stop them from eating into your energy before the day even starts. Something that you can actually do starting today, just scan next week's calendar to see roughly how many meetings you're going to have. And then for each meeting, pick one thing. Tell yourself, I'll either keep this one, or I'll turn it into a message, or I'll shorten it. And if you decide to turn it into a message, you can send your team a message, something to the tune of, hey guys, or hey team, this one's going to be quick. I recorded a 3-minute voice note with bullet points. If you have any questions, please add them in the doc and I'm going to reply by 4 p.m. And if you decide to shorten it by default, simply book a 25-minute or 50-minute slot and use the last 5 minutes to clarify who's doing what and by when. Remember, no agenda, no meeting. And I dug deep on this one in my previous video. Self-care is going to call on you to do a gut check. So if you're not deciding or contributing directly, just ask, do you need me live or is a summary okay? Then as far as your gadgets are concerned, especially the phone, try this 1-bedroom rule. The charger lives outside the bedroom. Why? Sleep is your original recharge. And you're going to notice that you start experiencing fewer interruptions, which will translate to real recovery without missing what's truly urgent. At number 3, you want to reframe change as a leadership gym. Change will often feel like a threat before it starts feeling like growth. Just think about it. Every restructure, every new management, every new demand, every surprise project, it's like a new weight that is added to your workout. It stretches your discipline levels. It demands attitude adjustment from you, maybe more humility if your ego is on the taller side. It's going to feel heavy, a bit much, yes, but it also builds a new muscle in you. Just imagine being asked to present to executives higher up in the organization, and you're used to presenting to your peers and to your team members, but now you have to deal with spaces where you may or may not be spat out, and you start sweating out the big and the small small stuff, your vocabulary, which body language that you can use to bring your A game, is there a quiet way that you can get yourself out of this one? That's imposter syndrome 3D. But then the same demand is placed on you once, twice, three, four times after. And you're going to notice that the more you get solicited for such uncomfortable presentations, the sharper your communication skills are going to become, the quieter the imposter syndrome is going to get. And this is something that would never happen if you stayed in your comfort zone. So instead of seeing workplace change as a punishment, you want to start looking at it as training. So you do this by turning every change into a skill drill. Just tell yourself, this situation, this presentation, this is my workout. What muscle am I training today? It could be executive communication or executive presentation, boundary setting, delegation. And if there's an area where you experience the most friction, maybe it's the tonality of your voice or the cadence in your words. Spend more time there. Get support if you know someone who can help you get better at it and fast. And ask clarifying questions just to remove any guesswork. If delegating is the thorn on your flesh, try handing over one item to someone who's equally qualified and stay around for support. And at the end of the day, take 2 minutes and journal what felt easier, what snagged you, what tiny tweak you will be trying out tomorrow. And then when you're wrapping up the week, say on Friday evening or Friday night, you want to track your progress like an athlete. Give yourself 10 quiet minutes just to write down the one win that you're proud of, Name the muscle that got stronger. Maybe your voice was more engaging in meetings. And then pick one place where you feel like you need backup come next week. And as always, protect your recovery. Like if you just pushed through a big deadline, schedule a lighter 24 to 48 hours for fewer meetings and more space to just breathe. And the more progress you make, the more confidence you're going to develop in your skills. This brings us to number 2. Practice pause leadership before reacting. Reacting fast doesn't always mean reacting well. That moment when an email shows up in your inbox, just 15 minutes to log off for the day, and you get a new directive that literally undoes weeks and weeks of preparation from yourself and your team. And your first instinct is to respond and waylay your frustrations in real time, and then go vent to anyone who's willing to listen. Quick emotional reactions have a way of undermining your credibility. When you snap, when you vent, when you fire off, a heated reply, all people stop bringing real information your way. They're going to hesitate with bad news. They're going to sugarcoat risks. They're going to wait for your mood to pass. And these are the moments when the team slaps on you privately before the meetings, like, is now a good time, to send that email, to approach her. Decisions are going to slow down. Problems are going to surface late with little to no room for damage control. Why? You look unpredictable. So people start managing your emotions and not the work. And as a leader, you don't want to operate in an environment where trust is diluted, because communication is going to get filtered because of emotional instability on your part. And these are fertile grounds to lose the very intel that you need to lead well. Also, most of those react in the moment decisions often get reversed the next day, like after more facts or, cooler heads. So you cancel a project in anger, then reinstate it the next day after thinking through. You reprimand someone in public, in a meeting, and then you apologize in DMs. Keep in mind, each reversal drains authority. So your peers are going to start seeing you as reactive. Your team stops believing in you, and your influence with senior stakeholders is going to shrink. And this is where pause leadership becomes your lifeline. That discipline of giving yourself a beat, sometimes just 24 hours before you respond. Just go for a pause along the lines of, I've seen your email, please give me until tomorrow to respond with a plan. And then quickly get the facts, the impact, and your next best step before you act. Steady beats speedy any day. And you're going to notice that when you show up the same way, calm, clear, fair, people are going to start bringing you the full picture instead of walking on eggshells around your emotions, around your moods. A measured next day decision beats a hot take that you're going to regret and have to walk back on. Then be quick to listen, to deliberate, to execute. That way, consistency compounds. And by practicing this pause leadership, you're training yourself to answer with facts and intention instead of emotion. So people can trust your judgment and bring you the real story. Just think, fewer snap calls, fewer walkbacks, more confidence in your role. And this is what is going to protect and grow your credibility as a leader. This brings us to number 1, lean on your emotional allies. Emotional balance is not about isolation, it's about support. And most people in leadership, especially women, fall into the trap of thinking that you have to carry it all alone, you have to complain less, you have to give more. The reality is there are other facets of your life outside of your office walls that equally need your attention. You're still a mother, you're still a sister, you're still a wife, a daughter, a friend. And these roles come with their own set of demands. And you're going to need your own emotional board of directors to see you through the seasons when work shifts just hit hard and you need a moment to just step back and process and breathe and reset. And this is where your inner circle comes in. I dug deeper also on this one in my previous video, and you're going to notice that your nervous system settles faster when you're seen and supported, not when you're silently spiraling. If you don't have an inner circle just yet, just make it simple. Pick 3 people: a peer, someone who understands your daily grind, a mentor, someone who's seen seasons of change before, and a friend outside of your work environment that you've been able to count on in the past for solid and biased advice. And then before you reach out to them, label the help that you need, like, I just need a listening ear. Can we brainstorm options on this? Or help me to choose between A and B. And the plan here is to keep the conversation useful, not draining. And using the previous example, it's like 4:45 in the evening, a policy drops, your plan explodes, and you call your peer. Just do a 3-minute vent and then waylay your plan. Something along the lines of, I need a 10-minute sanity check, or here are the facts, these are my options, and my possible next step is this. Or can you be my sounding board? I'm going to bring 2 options and a draft message, and then exhale and get mirrored back the facts. Agree on your first step and walk into tomorrow steady. And here you're not offloading responsibility, you're actually resourcing yourself so that you can show up clear, fair, and stronger for your team members. And something happens when you get that unfiltered reality check, or when your blind spots get challenged by someone you trust. Your decision-making skills are under pressure are going to be upgraded, because the call you make is now calmer, clearer, and harder to walk back. And you want people to trust the judgment behind your decisions. If you found this video helpful, please let me know in the comment section what stood out to you. And if you haven't joined the community yet, kindly consider subscribing and pressing that notifications bell on your screen for more conversations like this, just on leadership and emotional wellness. Also, share it with a friend or 2 who may benefit from this kind of content. And then take a moment to have a look at this video right here on how self-care fuels career advancement. Thank you so much for your company, and see you on the next one. Bye.